Hey everybody, welcome back to another Pushing Film live stream. Sorry about the late start there, I'm just noticing in the comments a couple of people were waiting. My apologies, just took a little bit for the streaming software to get connected. But I hope you're all doing well, and thanks again for joining. And if you're new to this sort of thing, this video is part of a growing series of videos I've been doing mainly as live streams lately, which I'm putting into a playlist called the Discussion and Insight playlist. So it's just like one of these playlists where I can make videos where I'm just going to discuss a topic like today's, which is the cost of shooting film. When does shooting film become too expensive? So yeah, apologies once again. I hope you're all doing well. Let me know where you're watching from, what you've been up to, anything you want to throw into the live comments there. And if there's any issues with audio or video, let me know. So yeah, check out that playlist on the channel if you want to watch more stuff like this. If you're new here, you can go through the backlog of live streams that I've saved onto the channel, and you can also check out some of the other videos I do as regular things on the channel as well. So I've got Ryan Parks Photography saying hi. Hey, thanks for joining, man. Welcome. So yeah, if you watched the most recent upload on the channel, it was a vlog where I uploaded a video of Sarah and my trip to Tasmania, which we did recently, and it was a great trip. We shot a lot of photos, and we mainly shot film. So we didn't take any digital cameras besides the ones in our smartphones, which we used to film the video footage. But that trip got me thinking a little bit about the cost of shooting film, which is something I've always thought about and I've been thinking about more lately. And yeah, we only shot film. We shot just a few rolls each. It wasn't too bad. It was something fairly conservative. I think Sarah shot 3 or 4 rolls. I shot between 4.5, 5 maybe. And we came back, we had the film developed, and we're very lucky here in Melbourne that we have a lab that develops for what I would call a really good price. It's about $10 to $13 Australian a roll. And if you're not familiar with Australian currency, if any of you guys watching from overseas, I just want to sort of set the scale here for you and just show you, for example, that 1 Australian dollar is 77 US dollars, and euros would be 6.63. I don't know if I said 73 US dollars, but I meant cents, sorry. But yeah, that gives you an idea. And if we look at British pounds, what is that? Yeah, about half a quid. So that's to give you an idea of the cost of processing here. And that's the thing this video is about, is how that cost of shooting film varies for everyone. And it is going to be different for everyone, also what they would call too expensive. So that's what I want to discuss today. When does film become, or shooting film rather, become too expensive? And of course, there's no straight answer to this. And I'm sure a lot of you guys would have looked at the title and thought, well, there's no real answer to that. It's completely subjective. But that's what I want to bring up as discussion. That's what I want to hear from you guys, whether you're watching live or watching this later, is where does that subjective limit lie? And I know it's not always going to be a hard limit. In most cases, in fact, it's probably a moving target. And let's say we actually break it down into numbers. What we would need to do first is to maybe take stock of how much we actually do spend on film photography. Do you shoot digital too, to offset some of that cost? Do you exclusively shoot a lot of film for work? Do you shoot like crazy? Or is it just a little side thing that you might just do a couple of rolls a month? But let's say I use myself as an example. And I would say I shoot fairly conservatively for someone who's heavily into film photography. I do pick and choose my shots when I'm out there, but I also am not afraid to just shoot an entire roll on the street if, for example, it's a great day out there. But on an average month, I probably go through a few rolls, maybe let's say 3 to 4. Some months might be a lot more. Some months I might only shoot a couple. I develop all of my own black and white stuff at home, which offsets a lot of that cost. And I scan that myself too. But with color film, because I get that good deal with Halide Supply, which is the lab I'm using at the moment, I give all my color film to them, and they give high-res scans, great service and quality. So I just do that to save time, essentially. And the cost, it would be the same even if I was developing all my own color at home. So on average, I probably spend about, I think, 60 Australian dollars a month. And this is a really rough figure, but let's just throw a figure out there. Let's say it's 50 to 80 Australian dollars per month for me. All right. I might have a month where I have a shoot or a project and it goes above that, but this is just sort of a rough average. And let's go back to that conversion just for any of you guys not familiar. All right, let's say I'm shooting $60 on the low end per year, 720 Australian dollars a year on film, on just buying and shooting and developing and scanning film. All right, let's say I add a little bit more onto that. I'll just chuck that 720 in here. For the cost of other incidentals like little accessories or things I buy, such as chemicals for developing my own film at home, and we'll just bump it up to about 1,000 Australian dollars per year. So in pounds, you've got 550 pounds. In euros, probably looking at 600 something, 638, and US dollars, you're looking at 770 US dollars, just to give you an idea. All right, so that's, for me, it was pretty hard to actually just decide to go, oh, wait, actually, I do spend that much. And that's kind of on the low end. Obviously, there's a lot more being spent on cameras and other things. And that's something I'm sure you guys can relate to. So maybe you're spending, if you're anything like me, more than 1,000, a couple of thousand. If you're buying luxury camera items like some of us, you're probably spending thousands per year on shooting film. And it's a cost that you're probably not getting back for the most part, unless you're using most of your film photography to make money to it for work, which I know the vast majority of people watching might do for some portion of their photography, but not for all of it. So that's what I want you guys to kind of think about. Have you ever taken stock and really calculated how much you're spending on film per year? Have a think about it if you want. Do a quick calculation if you like, and let me know in the comments what you think you're spending per year. And interestingly, what could you spend that money on? Like for me, let's say that's $1,000 roughly Australian dollars. That's a great brand new lens, or even a digital camera body, or whatever it could be. It could be money towards an investment or anything else. But yeah, let's quickly take a look through the comments because I missed a few. Sean, great video of Tassie. Thanks, Sean. Michaela, hello. Hello, Juan from Colombia. Audio and video is looking good. Thanks. Thanks, Aaron. Good to see Melburnians back to norm. Yeah. So our lockdowns are eased back again in Melbourne. We've got a lot of freedom at the moment, which is great. Ryan Park, hey from Sydney. Hello, Hayden from Wales. Where are we up to? I use my Rolleiflex 3.5 for street photography and a Canon EOS every day. Nice. Good combo. Hey, Vincent. Thanks for joining, man. Justin, I develop and scan my own film, help tremendously with cost. I buy my 120 film in boxes of 5 and try not to shoot anything that I'm not 100% certain that I want to take a picture of. Okay, so that's an interesting thought process. And when you've got that mentality, is part of that thought process initiated by the fact that you know it's costing you whatever per shot? Could be 50 cents a shot, $1 per shot, depending where you are. I believe that in some way, even if it's subconscious, that is usually playing a part in that decision as to how you shoot. Whereas when you shoot digital, you don't have that limitation. But at the same time, that's what's great about shooting film. It frees you up in the sense that you put more thought into it. So you're not, frees you up was probably the wrong expression, but I think you guys know what I mean. Whereas there is a paradoxical sense to that. The fact that it costs a lot makes you put more thought into it, and therefore makes the process more enjoyable and probably gets you better results in a lot of cases. Avery, I spend $20 Canadian per roll of black and white, and I develop my own. Yep. Sounds like Panda Lab. $16.50 for C41. Yeah, so there you go. Costs can vary a lot, and this is great for any of you guys to look through the comments and get an idea of how much that variation really exists between regions, countries, labs, where you buy your film, how much it costs you to get chemicals. Even here, I did a quick search for Portra 400, and you can see, at least in my region, you've got big ranges of prices. You got Camera House selling a 5-pack of Portra 400 for $129.95, whereas if I buy it overseas from Moment from the US, $53.95 US dollars with free shipping, $70, and the Amazon price is about 75. DigiDirect is 100 for 120, so probably more for 35 mil. But yeah, that gives you an idea. There's a huge amount of variation, and I mean, that's crazy. Film prices are going up, and that's the inevitable thing I wanted to kind of discuss in this, is where does that limit end up coming in? And I'll get to that soon. Just got to catch up with a few more comments. I've resorted to shooting my Fuji X100 more frequently, then shoot film from time to time to gather 10 rolls, then develop it once in a while. This helps with costs. Yeah, you might be getting like a batch discount perhaps. Vincent Perry Jr., if you're buying a digital camera every couple of years, that's cost as well. Exactly, that's true. But most of us film photographers are also buying a lot of new film cameras every year too. Maybe not all of us, but I know that generally speaking, anyone who's shooting both film and digital, they're probably spending now these days almost equal amounts on film gear and digital gear. If you're shooting digital professionally, let's say for me, I shoot weddings and corporate events and whatever, I spend more on my digital gear. But let's say if you're a hobbyist, the difference, it used to be that a film camera was something attractive because it's so cheap and no one really cared about them. They were getting rid of them for cheap prices. Not really the case anymore. Now you're spending $500 to $1,000 on a camera that doesn't have a warranty. And if you were buying a secondhand digital camera without a warranty, you wouldn't be spending that much more on average for a really good digital camera. Hayden, I used to develop my film until COVID. Right. Developing myself helps. Yeah, so that's like, seems to be a pretty common sentiment, is that making a lot of the process DIY, doing it yourself, bringing the process home, helps a lot offset the cost. Shooting large format. All right, yeah, so maybe moving up in format, shooting medium or large format, you're even more selective, so you shoot a lot less and you put so much more thought into the process and therefore save money. That's a good point from Whisper Silk 13. Frames per second. Hey, Josh, you joined. Not working on a Sunday. You haven't missed too much. You can have a scroll through the live comments. We're just talking about what film costs you for everyone. It's a very subjective thing. What do you think you spend per year, per month, whatever it is, on buying, shooting film, and some of the, the ancillary things that we spend to do with film photography? There are worse things we could be spending money on. Absolutely. Yep. Definitely spend more on film and cameras than digital from Jen. Yeah, see, good point. It is the case these days. Film cameras are creeping up in prices now. It's hard to look at some of the prices. All right, so I think we kind of get that point. And what I wanted to bring up with all this is, in a practical sense, where do you kind of draw the limit? So let's say for myself, I'm spending that 50 to 80 Australian dollars a month on just the buying and processing and chemicals. Then you've got the time spent, obviously, all right? Now, am I trying to say it's not worth it? Of course not. I love it and I'm going to keep doing it. I find the money well spent for me because it's something that I'm very passionate about. It brings me a lot of sense of fulfillment and even actualization in a lot of work that I'm doing, including this channel and other stuff like that. So I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I'm saying that there's a certain point that we might need to get a little bit realistic and actually kind of take stock of that. And I know for some people, they don't really have that limit. There might be someone who really, money isn't a problem. They'll buy, multiple Pro Packs of Portra and just burn through it like there's no tomorrow. And they'll pay for the ultimate quality film and processing and scanning and whatever, and it doesn't really make a dent. But for most people, I think it does. So it's worth taking into consideration. Now, just hypothetically, let's say that film prices kept going up, and the trend is that they are going up. The more that, let's say, Fujifilm discontinues stuff, that's not really helping because, let's say, Kodak has already had 2 major price rises, and a cost of Portra, as you saw on that page before, is, as an example, a staple film out there. It's going up pretty damn high. When is it too expensive? So if you're spending, for example, a roll of Portra here is about $15 to $20 if you get a decent price. And that's for one roll of film with 36 shots, and you're spending like, let's say 18 to average it out. That's $13 US. I'm sure in the US maybe it's closer to 10 if you buy locally. In euros, 10 euros, let's just say that. It's pretty expensive, but where would you draw the limit? If a roll of Portra went up to, say, $40, would that be your limit? Would it be, a bit less? Like, it's going to keep creeping up. And I know there's inflation as well, but I feel like the rate of price increase is accelerating faster than local inflation. So if my price per month on film went up to $200 a month, I would start to look at that. 100 even. 100 to 200 rather than 50 to 100. That's where I would kind of start to look at it and say, hey, this might be a bit too much, especially if it's just for my personal work that's not largely making money back. With my financial situation, I wouldn't call that reasonable. And I know that's going to be different for everyone. But that's what ties into another point that I kind of made earlier and I alluded to, is that a lot of us probably shoot digital as well as film. And we do that in a way that can kind of offset some of that cost. So let me know your thoughts on that. Kevin, overall cost of shooting 120 film makes me want to shoot 35mm more nowadays, but I love medium format too much. Yeah, especially when you only have 10 or 12 shots on a 120 roll. Josh, film cameras combined would equal one full frame digital camera I'd consider buying now. Yep. Matt, I figured over the span of 2 or 3 years, I spend about the same as I would on digital, given I would upgrade digital bodies every 3-ish years. Yeah, good point. But here's another thing on top of that, is that you're spending it on both of those things, right? Whereas a film-only photographer or a digital-only photographer is spending that amount on the one. And I'm saying this because I do that too. I also buy digital gear. I love digital photography. You may not actually know this because my channel's all about film, but I love digital. I shoot it for a lot of my work, even personal stuff. I just don't talk about it as much on this channel, but I would maybe spend more on that, even if it wasn't for the fact I do it for work. But the point is, I'm, as a film aficionado, spending money on both of those means. So that's something to take into consideration as well. And from Delta, price of film made me take the batteries out of my motor drive on the Canon A1. Yeah, I don't know about motor drives, man. Vincent, it's too expensive when there is more film in your fridge than food. Yeah, right. You shouldn't have more film in your fridge than food. But hey, if it's a little mini fridge, maybe. It's crazy because I spent a bit on instant pack film. Yeah, I saw that in your Instagram story, man. You must have gotten a good deal, because if you bought 10 packs of it, and that's normally going for insane prices, it's a good deal. But like I said, if it's something you're passionate about, I think it's worth it. I'm not saying it's not worth it in general, but I'm just sort of questioning, like, do we actually take stock of this stuff and set a limit on ourselves? Will we? Like, I'm not really so much focusing on it now, but I'm sort of looking into the future and saying, where does the point come where it becomes too expensive, where you have to kind of take these measures to reduce the cost you spend on film? And that's just the financial cost. A lot of people now are talking about ecological stuff as well, but that's a whole other topic. Let's see what we missed. A year ago, cost of film developing costs made me sell all my film cameras. Stick with digital, but the hunger of film was there. Right. Yep. If Portra 400 becomes $18 to $20 a roll, I would probably limit and will most likely shoot 90% black and white. That is something I've heard from people. And that's something that I think a lot of people watching are probably thinking about. Moving to cheaper films, moving to black and white, doing their own processing, doing their own scanning, and things like that. I suspect one of the primary drivers of price increase is that silver has doubled in price the last year. I have heard that, the price of silver on the actual market. I know that might be some of it, and I know that Nico's Photography News, I think he mentioned something about that, but Kodak was, I think, doing the first major price rise before any news of that. But hey, I'm not too sure. Justin, the price of 35mm film is too high for me right now. I use a digital camera for street and random stuff, and 120 for more serious work. 35mm just doesn't have the resolution to justify the price for me. See, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. See, I love shooting 35mm because I just do. I'm not going too much into that. But I also love 120, and that can be an increased cost as well if you don't limit yourself to one of the many film formats. Noob question, is 120 film flexible in terms of negative size? E.g. Fuji 680 versus 690. Yeah, well the negative stays the same. It's just the frame size on that strip of 120 that changes. Justin, the price of 35mm is too high right now. I think I read that one. David, new subscriber. And to Vincent Perry Jr.'s, I begun shooting film on 35mm, loving. Yeah, for sure. 35mm is a great place to start. It is still the most accessible. Probably in general, it's going to be the cheapest because you get more shots and it's the most commonly processed format for like mini labs or 1 hour labs and stuff. I got a deal. It was about $33 a box for 9 packs. That's pretty good. That's pretty close to what it cost when they still sold it on the shop shelves. I should do a better job of tracking, to be honest, but I actually do not shoot a whole lot. Yeah, see, I, for the longest time, never even took stock or thought about how much do I actually spend on film. I only did it because of this podcast or live stream. The real pain for people like myself who absolutely love E6 slide films, yeah, that's definitely the case. Less places are processing slide and it's becoming more expensive. Whereas it used to be the mainstream option for consumer photography. I think in the 80s, maybe 70s, 80s. I spend about 70 Canadian per month on film and processing. I get Kodak Gold 200 here for about $5 per roll. Okay, see, that's a pretty similar figure, I'd say, to what I had there. I know prices in Canada can be a bit high, but similar to Australia. Okay, yeah, so some good food for thought here in the comments. I won't read through all of them. There's quite a few in the live chat. But I would love to hear all your thoughts for anyone watching later on in the post-stream video. Leave it in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. Where would you draw the limit? How much do you think is the most you can justify spending per month? What is it for you? Of course, it's going to be different for everyone, but that's what I want to sort of, figure out what that sliding scale is out there. Where does it become unreasonable to spend that amount of money on film, and what will you do to offset that cost? For example, the main thing we've spoken about so far is taking some of that process home, reducing the costs, buying cheaper film, finding better deals, and of course, shooting digital alongside your film so that you can still enjoy the results of film, and then maybe you have something to base your digital editing on, because if it really is, for example, the colors you love about film, which is part of it for myself, I have something then to base my digital work. Something I do in weddings, for example. If I shoot a bit of film and I have that palette from the film I shot to work off, I can kind of lean a bit of my editing towards that. Additionally, if I do shoot film, let's say for my hobbyist stuff like street photography, I build a certain way of shooting, a certain process, where I'm more in the moment and I'm not looking at any screen because there isn't one, and I have a certain way of, like, let's say zone focusing or shooting, and a lot of that can be adapted to the way you shoot digital. There's nothing to say that you can't pick up a digital camera and use it in the exact same way that you shoot film. So that's something I would take into consideration. If I use my Leica MA to shoot all my street work, sure, at the moment it's pretty, it's justifiable. I can manage it, but then in the future, it may not be so manageable, especially if I do another overseas trip. Yeah, it might be worth having a digital camera alongside that to make sure I have the insurance of the digital shots like I do at a wedding, and also to lessen some of that cost. Yeah, it's just an inevitable thing about shooting film. So just checking a few more comments before I think we'll head towards the end of the stream. Just starting out with 35mm, honestly frustrating when you're starting out, when you load film wrong. Yeah, I know. I made a whole video about that because I've heard that from a lot of people when I worked at Michael's camera. Even Kodak Gold has gone up. Yeah, it has. And not to mention the shortages. Kodak can't keep up. And on a side note, I don't think that the price rises from Kodak are not justified. I know they have to keep up with their rising costs, and it is a really niche thing, so it has to be expensive in a sense, like any other niche hobby can be. I think you can cut 120 to 127. Nelson, bought a Fuji X-T20 to have the manual film camera feeling when shooting film. Yeah, that's something that Fuji, I think, has noticed. And what I would really like to do, and tell me if you guys think this is a good idea, because I've been thinking about this for a long time, is I want to do a video for example, with let's say a Fuji X Pro camera or an XT20 or any of those X series cameras that have the film camera kind of design and feeling, and look at it from the perspective of a film photographer. So for example, with myself, I shoot on the Leica MA for street photography. So the perfect equivalent to that would be a Leica M digital body, but I can't really afford that. And I can't imagine borrowing one of those from Leica. But I would like to maybe get my hands on a Fuji X Pro or something and compare that side by side, maybe even adapt some of the lenses and taking some of the crop into account, of course, put it side by side in terms of the experience and some of the end result as well. How close can you get them? Does it match up if you bring that film shooter's mentality across to digital? Let me know if you think that's a good video idea, because that's something I've been wanting to do for a while. But yeah, Fuji cameras definitely seem to be where it's at for people who shoot film and want that a bit of that feeling, the ergonomics and the process on their digital camera. David, I don't have a handheld light meter. Minolta has metering. CLC metering isn't specific enough for Provia. Okay, should I take a spot meter reading on my digital camera for the highlights and then compensate? There's no easy answer to that. If you have a digital camera with you when you're shooting slide film, it is going to work well as a meter. I would probably just put the digital camera on its matrix metering mode and just sort of look at the histogram. If you can open up a histogram and make sure that your highlights aren't clipping. If they're not clipping on that digital histogram, you should be able to translate those settings across. Otherwise, maybe bump the exposure down a little bit. That's a good way to work with slide film. And then once you get into spot metering, that's a lot more complex. I think you can check out Nick Carver. He's done some really good videos on spot metering. I'm not too versed on it. Space Cowboy, using digital for most of my photography, starting to get mainly into 35mm. Yeah, see, it's interesting. More people are getting into film and therefore incurring the rising cost. Jen, I have an XT4. Yeah, I saw that. That was your most recent digital purchase. It feels similar to shooting 35mm film camera. Yeah. I faked the film camera feel with a D700 and a Voigtlander 40mm Ultron, especially slightly overexposed shots in sunny conditions. Yeah, there you go. And that's perfectly fine. And you can still enjoy shooting film maybe side by side, but just offset a bit of that with that digital setup you have. And the Ultron 40 is a great lens. The other great thing is if you use manual vintage lenses on a digital camera, you do get some of that look. Some of the look that you're getting from film is inherent to the fact that the lenses are old and they're uncoated and all those sort of things. Dip and Dunk technician here, best pro lab in North American City, can confirm it's too expensive. All right. Confirmation from PJO there. Thinking of selling my M6 and using funds for a digital M. Yeah, because of film cost. Am I crazy? You're not crazy, man. It's completely fair. And if you look at even the professional photographers out there, let's say Alex Webb had to move to digital M bodies because Kodachrome got discontinued. It wasn't so much because of maybe cost for him. But you look at his work and it still looks good. It still looks very close. Is it aesthetically as nice? This is subjective, but I don't think it has the same look as his film work. But it's just as good, really, in its overall scale in how his work presents. And there's so many great work being created on digital. So it's definitely not a crazy decision to abandon film completely if you need to, if you want to. I personally like having access to both, and I want to be able to do that for as long as possible. But yeah, definitely not crazy. Film isn't that expensive because it's a material. It has to be mined, transported. Right. Anyway, I hope that this live stream gave you guys some food for thought. I'm just going to probably wrap things up here. What are we looking at in terms of timing? 29 minutes. All right, yeah. So half an hour. It's usually where I try and cap it off. Let me know what you think. If you're watching this post stream, thanks for sticking around for the whole video if you did. And leave your thoughts in the comments. When does it get too expensive for you? What are some of your methods to offset some of that cost? Like I mentioned, this video will be part of a playlist, a growing playlist of discussion-based videos. The last video on the channel was the Tasmania vlog. So if you haven't checked that out, and you can check it out on the channel. It was a vlog that Sarah and I did just on our phones and a drone we borrowed from our friend Matt, and shot plenty of film in Tasmania, so you can check that out. The next video on the channel, and on an interesting note, I did an accidental live stream, so thank you very much for anyone who joined for that one. I was editing my next video, which wasn't the Tassie one. I was editing 2 videos ahead, and it was a video that I'm launching tomorrow. It's about how I make my videos. All right, so spoiler alert, it's already been spoiled because I accidentally streamed myself while editing the video, which was hilarious. And I went on and saw all the people's comments on the live stream, which is really funny as well. You know, mistakes happen, and that's the video I'm launching tomorrow. So if you're interested in some of that, I talk about some of the process of how I make my videos and a little bit touching on printing and scanning and some of my film workflow stuff as well. But yeah, that's the next thing on the channel. What else was I going to say about that? Yeah, if you did join for that accidental live stream, thank you. It actually did increase viewership to the channel, even though I wasn't aware I was streaming for 40 minutes straight. So yeah, thanks again for everyone's support on the channel as usual. Let me know if you have any questions. If I missed any comments in the live chat, I'm sorry. I'll look back at it later, see if I can address anything important that I missed. And just checking the last couple of things, I looked up Adorama selling Ektar in 1974 for $329. Now it's $17.50. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of inflation adjustment there. I use Helios on my Nikon, give a bit of that film look for sure. All right, guys, thanks once again for joining and for your support on the channel as always. Like I said, feel free to check out some of those other videos and playlists on the channel. If you are familiar with Discord, maybe even if you're not, I've got an invite link to the Pushing Film Discord server in the description of this video. So feel free to check that out there, and we can continue some of this discussion there if you like. And yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Still streaming? Ending now.